So welcome to my home garden. Today I'm going to be showing you how I've been looking after my tomatoes during this incredibly hot weather we've been experiencing in the UK. I'm going to be talking about how I look after them, some of the issues that can arise when it's really dry, and how you can deal with them. So if you've not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment, and also my home kitchen. And I've got a really useful book here that if you grow tomatoes to have is really useful. I've had this for donkey's years. It's a good old-fashioned book, but it does what you need it to. It's the Vegetable and Herb Expert. I will put a link in the description because it shows a whole host of things that can go wrong with lots and lots of plants and how you deal with it, and in particular really quite detailed about tomatoes. I really like it. It's really explanatory. Now, I don't know what it's like where you are, whether you're in the UK or whether you're not in the UK. It'd be really great if you can tell me where you're from, just to see who's watching, to see how widespread I am. I know lots of people are looking at me all over the world, which is really great that lots of people are getting inspiration. So some comments about where you are would be absolutely awesome. Now, with your tomatoes, looking after your tomatoes differs greatly, all depending whether they're in pots or whether they're in the ground. So first of all, we'll start with watering and how often we water, even when it's really dry. Now, obviously, if they're in pots, at this time of the year when they're fruiting, you will have to water them at least daily, if not twice a day. Common sense, obviously check that the pots are dry and they need watering. But yeah, if they're in pots, probably this time of the year, twice a day. I know that seems a lot, but the only way they get water is from the pot. That is why I grow mine in the ground, because it's much easier to grow them in the ground. So if you've got room to grow them in the ground, personally I don't find that they suffer from being out. You know, it doesn't cause any difference in my production than having them in the greenhouse. If anything, it causes me more work when they're in the greenhouse. So if they're in the ground like mine are, generally I would water them every other day. In extremely dry weather, I would maybe give them a little bit more. And one thing I do, because I keep my tomatoes at home, any spare water, I mean, I've got most of my water comes from water butts that I harvest off of my roof, I will add. But if I'm washing vegetables or I wash something in the sink and the water's not that dirty, I will never waste it. I will put it on the plant. So actually, they probably get a little bit more water with the stuff at home. With the stuff at the allotment, I have a separate video on that. Because it is quite different how you would look after something up at the allotment, and if you want to watch that video, a link will be put on this video so you can watch it. But for things at home where you've got a little bit more water to hand, then it's much easier to water, and things like tomatoes are a little bit more needy with water. If they don't get enough water, there's a lot more problems that can happen with a tomato than there are with a lot of other plants, which is what I'll move on to. What I will say is a lot of the problems you get with tomatoes are not insurmountable, they're fixable. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to ruin the whole plant, is what I will say with hot weather. So it's not terrible, it's just knowing how to deal with it. One of the things you get a lot is the leaves like this. Now, generally speaking, while it could be other issues, generally it's just good old-fashioned leaf roll. And what happens is just different changes in temperature, like we've been seeing. Quite chilly and then quite hot causes leaf roll. It's absolutely nothing to worry about in most circumstances, if it's just leaf roll. If it's something else, then obviously that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But good old-fashioned leaf roll is not a problem. It looks really alarming when all the leaves are really, like some of these, really curled in, but actually doesn't cause the tomatoes any harm whatsoever. This, on the other hand, I think is just a little bit of sun scorch. Can you see the leaves have actually changed colour? And if I'm honest, that plant itself is not doing the best. So that's different, because obviously the leaves themselves are discoloured, but all these ones, it's just good old-fashioned leaf roll. So absolutely nothing to concern yourself with. Doesn't really matter how you water it, what you do, it's the temperature that's doing it, and it's nothing to do with anything else. So I've got this book here because I think this is really useful, and I haven't got any of these conditions at the moment, or not many of them, so I can't show them to you. So some of them I can and some of them I can't. So with the really dry weather, something that is very, very common, and I'm seeing a lot of people posting it on some of the on some of the social media pages, is blossom end rot. Now, blossom end rot is on the base of the tomato, so just on the underneath you get like a little brown spot, which I haven't got, and that's to do with is to do with dry weather, basically. So you must try and keep your tomatoes watered. That is another reason why I generally don't grow large tomatoes, because the larger the tomato, the bigger likelihood of you getting blossom end rot. So as you can see, most of my tomatoes are a little bit smaller. The biggest ones I've got aroma up at the end, the kind of like the plum tomato ones, which are a little bit larger. So if you've got larger tomatoes, it's more of a problem to get blossom end rot. The cherry tomatoes, it's not impossible, but it's less likely, and also it's less likely to happen when they're planted in the ground as opposed to in pots. The other thing is blossom drop, which I have got an example of that. It's where the whole knuckle drops off, if you can see the picture, and I have got a little bit of that. So the description in the book is flowers sometimes wither and break off the knuckle, pollination has not taken place, and the cause is usually dryness in the roots or the air. Now, you're probably just going to get a bit of it. You're more likely to get more of it if it's in a greenhouse, because it can get a lot drier, but I've got a little bit on my plants here, as you can see. You know, some of them are perfectly okay, and some of them aren't. You know, I've got loads of them on here. You're going to get a little bit of it, but as you can see, I've got so many tomatoes anyway. If you get a little bit of it, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, those ones aren't going to fall, but as you can see, there's loads of other tomatoes on there. So just don't beat yourself up too much about it. It's all about eating and not concerning yourself with everything being perfect. The other thing is dry set, which I've got a little bit of that too. So this is where the growth of the fruit ceases when it reaches the size of a match head. The trouble is due to air being too dry, and again, too dry, too hot. It's one of those things. Do you know what? That's nothing to do with you watering it. You can spray them with water in the mornings. That's what some people recommend. So you could give them a little bit of a mist up in the mornings. But again, I've got so much on here, I'm not too concerned about it. So if it looks like you're really concerned about it, and again, if you're in a greenhouse, it might be worth giving them a mist down. But I've got a little bit of it where you can see they formed, but look, little tiny, you know. But like I said, I've still got plenty that have formed. So to stop that, you can just mist the plants up. So that's some of the really, really common conditions you can have. If your plants are in the greenhouse and you're getting too much sun, what I would recommend is getting some sunshade. Now, although I haven't got any tomatoes in here, my chilies are in here. We bought the sunshade many years ago. It's really worth doing. I've only bought one piece. As you can see, I've only got it over half, because all I'm doing is trying to protect my chilies from getting scorched from the sun. This little thing here, it really doesn't look like it does an awful lot, but it is actually incredibly effective of stopping sun scorch on the stuff in the greenhouse. If I can find it, I will put a link in the description. Like I said, I bought this years ago. It's just, it just lasts and lasts. You just get it out every year to protect your plants when you need to. So I'd really love to hear how your tomatoes are doing. If there's anything else you're not sure about, or if I've not covered something, but I think that's probably about it, then please do put it in the comments and we'll do our best to answer.